Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talking Niagara. First thing of the day, Dave. It's 12 noon, high noon, not 1 today.
Yes, thank you very much.
And good morning, Mike and everybody else. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. And Dave's on double duty today because he's dealing with the council roundup with Your City, Your Voice at 12 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot there. Pretty basic stuff. But nevertheless, it's always good to keep up on it.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome everybody. All right, where are we? Okay, in the morning. Okay, British paratroopers land an airdrop on Tristan da Cunha for suspected hantavirus case there. We heard about this last week with this ship that docked there and dropped off some passengers, and there was actually a British gentleman interested in Da Cunha that actually contracted the disease, and the only way they can get there quickly was to actually have paratroopers drop into Tristan da Cunha after a 6,800 kilometer trip from RAF Breeze Norton Air Base in Oxfordshire in England, where they dropped into the Ascension Islands and then added another 3,000 kilometers due south to Tristan da Cunha.
Holy cow. Well, so I'm not really, if I was a conspiracy theorist, and I'm waiting for these conspiracies that the hantavirus is the next level of conspiracy after COVID, where this is going to be another excuse to shut things down, and Big Pharma will make all kinds of money, and you'll get Trump to do another Operation Warp Speed, which he did during COVID. Remember, he's the one that launched the virus, the vaccinations in the United States. He had he's the one that did that. He's the one that started the vaccinations in the U.S. and yet he has to sort of turn his back away from it because there's so much theories about this or that BS going on about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I hope that we don't have to face that BS all over again, conspiracy about the hantavirus. But it is a possibility that this could be a real problem. Although hantavirus doesn't typically move from person to person, it is doing that now. In rare cases, it does. And they've seemed to have got a strain on the ship that has been able to jump from person to person. So that's why they're looking at this so very carefully. They don't want it to get out of hand.
And Mike is saying that kids are freaking out because YouTube is letting out crazy stories about this hantavirus. Well, I don't know. YouTube isn't. It's YouTube users are actually making crazy stories.
Yeah, and probably it's all over TikTok too. The real problem is that
40% mortality rate. Yes, it's a very high mortality rate, but it's very, traditionally hantavirus has been very difficult to actually spread.
Well, let's be very, very clear on this. Only some forms of the hantavirus are 40% lethal. There are others that are various different kinds of lethality, and it's just like all kinds of other diseases. There are forms of it that aren't so bad. Many people survive mild doses of hantavirus, but there are some strains of it that are 40% lethal.
Yeah,
and that, of course, is a real concern. It's well, you remember the early days of COVID when the death rates were very high.
Yeah.
Right. And then as the virus began to morph into different variations, it became less and less deadly.
Yeah.
It became it became easier to catch, but less likely to do you harm.
Yeah.
And as I pointed out at the time, there's a things called sophisticated viruses and unsophisticated virus. Unsophisticated virus would be like Ebola, comes in and kills everybody, but transmits quickly and kills everybody, and pretty soon it kills all its hosts and it can't transmit itself after that. And then you have the very sophisticated viruses like the common cold, which comes in and makes you a little bit sick and then transfers to the next host, always keeping the host alive. So when it comes back the next time, So hantavirus could be doing some of that. It could have that. It's very vulgar, coarse, primitive form where it kills its host, or it could evolve into something more sophisticated. Anyway, whatever. It's fairly new to us, and we should be very, very careful with it.
Well, the fact that they've had medics fly 6,800 kilometers, more or less, to actually treat to look at and assess the situation in Tristan da Cunha says how seriously the British are treating this, because the person who is supposedly got the virus there is actually a British holiday maker.
Well, it's something we have to be very, very careful about. And we know that this comes from the droppings, the urine, and other aspects of rodents. We have lived with rodents. Our ancestors lived close to rodents for there are always rodents in their homes, in their ships, everywhere. There's always been rats and mice. It's always been a bane of existence. It's only in modern times that we've been able to control them. Now, that may make us more vulnerable to hantavirus because obviously we lived with it for centuries, and you don't hear too much about people dying of hantavirus in the old days because it was still even rare even then when they were surrounded by rodents. Live with, so we may have lost some of our immunity to this.
Yeah. But again, we're not that distant from rodents, because one of the biggest challenges you have when there's a new development go on is you get rodents flee the area, because suddenly now when the cranes go in, those rodent nests that were all there in where the new houses are being developed, suddenly you have to flee, don't they?
Well, there's rodents around all the time. I'm talking about, and every once in a while I'll see a rat run by out here, and we've had recent infestations of rats. But the problem is, what I'm saying, they're not in our houses. They used to be in our houses, right? They used to be behind the walls.
Yeah,
they used to be close proximity to us, and even in like farm areas or whatever, where there is more rats and mice in about the barns and so on, we still don't see a whole lot of hantavirus. This would make this is particularly important. Now, obviously, these people are in a petri zone, a petri dish, being on a cruise ship where everything can be transferred very quickly, and exposure is much more likely in a closed environment like that. Nevertheless, it has to be checked out and thoroughly checked, because we don't want to launch something into the general public, do we?
Well, there were two cruise ships, of course, that were in part, that were responsible for spreading, at least were. Two cruise ships actually were mentioned as in the death tolls in respect of the coronavirus, right?
Yeah, well, that would be another example of being in a petri dish.
Yeah,
you're within a very enclosed area, and there's, of course, course, COVID would spread like 90 in a place like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, the bottom line here is that they are taking appropriate
we have
cautions. The thing in the States, though, the fear in the United States is that they have removed a lot of they have reduced the ability in the United States to track diseases, the CDC, its involvement with WHO. A lot of the Americans are afraid that they have withdrawn themselves from a lot of the very expensive but leading edge organizations that track these things, like the WHO, for instance. And they have reduced the ability, removed people from the CDC, and sort of eviscerated a lot of their healthcare bureaucracy. So I don't know if that will.
Wait, you should see Rick's statement this morning. There you go, Rick's statement.
We have clean rats in Ontario. Yes, and that's yeah, yes. We have much better rats. We have much better rats. Our rats are much cleaner than.
Oh my God! So the rats went to the doctors, did they?
Well, our rat educational system is much better than it is in the States.
Right. Well, like I believe that. Right. Like I believe that. But in fact, actually, I think that trip was
our rats get vaccinations before they go on a trip.
I think that the British paratroopers taking them to those islands was probably a good thing, because it was probably necessary.
Yeah, they're treating this correctly. They're treating this well, and they're not letting the people off the ship. They are, but they're in quarantine, et cetera, et cetera. That's the very last thing we do need is another global virus at about this particular time.
Yeah.
Although it might be a good thing to put a pandemic in the Persian Gulf right now. That might stop everybody from killing each other.
Okay.
Everybody's in their sick bed. Oh, I can't lift up my gun. Oh, well, that's good.
But you're an enemy. I'm going to shoot you. Oh, I can't lift up my gun.
I can't get my gun. All right, I'm coming back next week.
All right, moving on. Canadian canola oil exports have hit a year high for crop, but not actually. This is not the best year we've ever had for Canadian canola oil exports. It just happens to be year on year much higher this year than it has been for quite some time. And this was partly in part due to the deal that Carney cut with China about canola exports to replace some of their missing imports.
Yeah, so this flies in the face of the people that think that Carney went ahead and made a nothing deal with China. The big thing they always point out, which with the deal he made with China, is they're allowing Chinese electric cars into our market, 55,000 of them, which is pretty small amount. But the very idea that we're really much going back to our previous trading agreements with China that happened before we put the 100% tariff on their electric cars when Trudeau did that. I don't think if Carney was in office at that particular time that would have ever happened. It's much more sensible to hammer out a deal. You would have known if you put 100% tariff on Chinese vehicles that, of course, the Chinese were going to return with 100% tariff on something else. And they picked canola oil this particular time, which was a disaster for Saskatchewan especially, and the western provinces. So when Carney went over there and he hammered out, he just pretty much went back to what the deal was between Canada and China before Justin stuck his nose in there. he just mimicked Joe Biden. What Joe Biden did, he did all the time. And when Joe Biden put 100% tariff on electric cars from China, he did the same without really thinking it out. That would make
Mike asked the question: is this a sign that Carney is doing good work?
I think so. Like I'm trying to find fault with Carney a lot of places, but he sorted out. He brought things back to normal between us and China. So we are selling enormous amounts of canola oil to China. That market's wide open. It's back. It's back, including fish and meat products and other things that they've sorted out. So the temperature went way down there. And what would have happened without the 100% tariff thing on Chinese vehicles would have happened anyway, where small amounts of Chinese vehicles would make it into our market. Just like in years past, when a small amount of Japanese cars made it into our market, and they eventually found a place. You can't find better vehicles than Honda and Toyota, and they're made here in Canada. So that one thing that everybody says, oh, we sold out to China, but remember, part of the agreement was having the Chinese vehicles eventually being built here, just like American cars are built here, just like Japanese cars are built here. I don't see any real problem. As long as Canadians get work out of this, that's what I'm looking at.
And in any case, the thing is, if you do deals with North America, not just Canada, but but the whole of North America, you're tending to actually, you're not importing. You may start by importing cars, but eventually you get them local made because it makes sense. Because the local made ones, if you're going to sell and open up that market, it's going to come from local made cars, not from imported cars.
Well, you're going to have a blend of both, just like we do with the United States. We build some American cars, and we buy American cars. In fact, we are the number one market for American automobiles outside the United States. They sell more to Canada than anywhere else. So we're a huge market. But on the other hand, and what does Mike say here? Trump will tariff no matter what. We will end up paying tariffs. We are not going to pay the tariffs, Mike. The United States consumer is going to pay the tariff. Yeah. The problem with the tariff is that when the tariff goes on a product coming from Canada, it makes it less likely to be purchased because it costs more. So if you look at a car coming from Canada in the United States, up until now, there hasn't been a tariff on it. But if you put a tariff on it, the American consumer has to pay more for it. So they're more likely to buy one that's made domestically. We could do the same thing, but that would hurt us because we buy so many American vehicles. If we put a tariff on American vehicles, then it's going to be us that hurts. We're going to be the one that pays more for that vehicle. If you want to buy an F-150, which is sort of the one truck that's kind of keeping Ford afloat, a lot of times it's a really, by all accounts, a very good truck, very popular, and there's reasons for that because it does its job very well. So if you want to buy a Ford 150 and the Canadian government puts a tariff on Ford 150s, then the Canadian consumer who wants a good truck will have to pay more for it. We don't have an alternative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's that's the problem with tariffs. It makes more, and that's why we're fighting tariffs, because we don't want our products to be more expensive in the United States. But it's the American consumer that pays for it. Right now, they're paying huge amounts of money for the nickel and aluminum that comes from Canada, and I don't know. And that's probably one of the reasons why we are diversifying our aluminum exports, because just because they're buying less aluminum because it costs so much. This is just buy the truck. What did it say? Just buy the truck.
Just buy the truck from the USA.
Well, yeah, you if you want to buy it, yeah, definitely. But what I'm saying here is the truck that's made in Canada, it goes to the United States, there will be a tariff on it. So the U.S. consumer will more likely buy a domestic truck. But if we do the same thing here, we're actually hurting our own domestic market because we don't have as many alternatives as they do in the United States.
Right. And Rick also said, time to call Trump for a deal.
I'm calling out Trump, a steel cage match. I'm putting it on. I'm dropping the gauntlet. I have over and over on this show, and we know this is a worldwide show, of course. It's on YouTube. So I've dropped the gauntlet. I've challenged Trump to a steel cage match, and he can bring in Vance, Rubio, and Lutnick. I want Lutnick there because I want to give him a special double eye gouge, and he can bring in a couple more. But if he brings more than 4, if there's more than 4 of them, I'll have to use both hands. Steel cage match. Winner take all. I'm going to solve this tariff thing between us once and for all.
Okay. This is so.
But you know he's going to cheat. You know he's going to cheat. I'm waiting for that. He's going to have a manager on the outside of the steel cage match handing him concealed objects. And his manager's going to come over to me and spray me in the eyes with, with some kind of thing that will make me blurry and all that. I know this is going to happen. I'm prepared for this. So I may have to use 2 hands.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's go in back local news. Okay, so Grimsby is making a decision on the Woolverton residential commercial development, which has been on the table for quite some time now. The project is led by Woolverton Holdings Corporation and backed by Castle Point Numa Centres on a mid-rise, and it centres on a mid-rise 7-story building in downtown Grimsby.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, the thing that I've heard more and more from people of Grimsby over the years is it's becoming more and more commercial, is losing its appeal as a sort of small town place on the outskirts of Hamilton, where the small town character is maintained. Well, with that big behemoth sitting right in the middle of downtown, that's all gone. You know, it no longer has its small town character. That's the last vestige of the small town character, because there's a big, blocky, huge building right in the middle of downtown. Woolverton owns that area. It is asked for the development. All I can think of from the city council there is they must need a boost to their local economy or something, because the reason why so many people have moved there or stayed there is because of that small town appeal.
Yeah.
And it has been slowly eroding, just kind of like Pelham and Font Hill.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say that that small town Grimsby has changed a lot. When I first went to Grimsby, when I first moved into Grimsby, it was definitely a small town vibe. You know, by the time I'd left, which was only 3 years later, it was no longer small town at all. There was massive, big box stores everywhere. There was new developments that were opening up. And sure, these weren't multi-story developments, but even so, there was still couple of multi-stories there. And, a lot of these were just breaking the character of Grimsby as a town.
Well, I would say, look out, Niagara-on-the-Lake. This is coming for you. Look out, Font Hill. Font Hill is pretty much all sold out now. There, if you go to Font Hill, what do you see? big shopping plazas and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of their characters already being eroded.
Yeah.
But look out, Niagara on the Lake. This is coming for you. The big building. Someone's going to suggest, oh, we got to have a big condo. We got to this or that. So if you want to hold on to that small town character, if your citizens want, that's why a lot of people move to Niagara on the Lake. They get a bit snooty and say, oh, we're in a more of an exclusive town. We're keeping our small town character, but the demand for living there is huge.
Yeah.
A lot of people want that on their NOTL on their address.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a prestige thing. And yet it was just a little pokey farmer town years ago. I remember going to the Prince of Wales and drinking beer with farmers, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And everything in this whole thing is changing but the developer is taking the position that they want to be set back from Main Street and they want to respect the existing streetscape, and the goal is to feed the downtown, not overwhelm it. That's what the developers are saying, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the developers are saying it, and the city council's all for it, and they postponed it to get more feedback from the residents. I know the feedback they're going to get. There's a lot of people going to say, "Look, this is a concrete. This does not belong here. This does not look well for our town. It's just a big hunk of concrete and glass that looks fine anywhere else, but not here." Even if you want to build something that big, you have to talk about the design. How will the design fit into the character of the town?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are talking about that, but money talks. And if the city council of Grimsby feel that they need that booster economy and they need those residencies, because there's going to be a lot of residents in that building, plus the fact that about 15% of the units there will be affordable. I never believe that till I see it, but that's a good.
No, neither do I. Neither do I. And it kind of dwarfs some of the pre-existing, buildings in downtown. Because it's
by
actually
huge amount, yeah.
It's quite, there's not much in the way of high rise in downtown Grimsby. There's one or two, but not huge amounts. But this going to be starting to make, high rise more common in Grimsby.
Yeah, it's kind of like putting a modern condo in the middle of the Vatican. It really doesn't fit. And but it doesn't matter really what we think. They need capacity, and they need capacity for the people who live there. So they're going to need apartments. They're going to need part of the building is commercial. They feel they need that as well. So they have made their decision. But if I looked at that picture, which I did look, and it looks like it's just simply like analogous to having a modern day tower condo in the middle of the Vatican. It's like they just don't fit.
Yeah.
Fit together.
Yeah.
It's a square. It's a round peg trying to get into a square hole.
Yeah. And a lot of these, you're talking about commercial developments on the bottom. The whole point is that a lot in the past, you go to Toronto and all of these condo units have got commercial developments, one, maybe two, maybe three or four floors of commercial underneath the condo that rises above them.
Yeah, so that's basically, it's going to be commercial. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about that, is that it just does not look well. And I would warn Niagara on the Lake that it's coming for you too.
Yeah. All right. We've got a couple more comments upon this. Oh, come on. Come on. I've got a browser hanging up on me.
Well, we'll just go on to something else then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So for Neil Farage won a lot of seats in the UK municipal elections.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very interesting how politics are working nowadays. The shift to the right has been going on for some time, but it's slowed down, and the shift is starting to go back towards the center, but not in England or not in the UK, apparently. The shift towards the populist right is picking up steam. And why is that?
Well,
Is it could be a reflection on Steimer's uh, leadership and how badly reform labor have performed.
but in fact, actually, this is there's a bit of an oddity here. This is actually where there's been some bad reporting, going on here. Because in fact, I saw this and I thought, I looked at it and I thought, okay, Reform UK won big in local elections. Right, splintering the two-party system. Well, at local elections, there was no such thing as a two-party system. It's been a 4 or 5 party system for maybe 2 decades now, at least. So political parties at local elections are not quite the same as they are at the national level. But yes, they won. They gained 1,400. They gained 1,400 seats nationwide. Reform UK basically is only in control of about eight or nine councils.
Yeah, but it is the shift towards this and the kind of removal of labor and the shakeup is
Actually,
happening.
biggest loss was Conservative.
Yeah, they lost. Well, they lost a lot, but also the Labor lost a lot to the Greens. Anytime where the Green Party was in the race against Labor, Labor's votes were reduced because it split the Labor vote. What I'm saying here is that there's a very unusual thing going on in politics right now. We've seen a shift, much more of a shift to the fundamentalist all over the world. I think it started years ago when the Muslim country started a shift towards more away from secularism and more towards religious, not the fundamentalist part of the religion, but to more conservative religious views, basically. And then I begin to see this everywhere, where the whole West have always started to shift more towards conservative ideology. I see them shifting in Russia. This is a thing that Putin used. Xi has used a very conservative ideology too. And here in the United States, we see a big shift, a strong movement towards Christianity of late, and more conservative, nationalistic sort of sentiments.
Yeah.
But it jumps all over the place. Like you get a guy like Mamdani in New York. He's a social democrat, and yet he was able to get elected in New York City, which you would have thought would never have happened given the trends that are happening in the rest of the country.
Yeah. The other thing to note about this election in UK is that typically most municipalities have a situation where they are sitting in no overall control. So there might well be one party that's in the lead, but municipally, no overall control is probably running the vast majority of these elections. And the trouble is, it's easy to jump on the fact that Reform won a huge number of seats, and the Conservatives though have been basically splitting. Labour is of course leaderless. realistically, because Starmer's actually really in problems right now. So he's a year or so in, he's in real trouble. But yet, the underlying thing about this is that more than 60% of the UK population want the UK back into the European Union.
Well, they're talking here also about the duopoly, which they've said for the last 100 years, it's Labour versus Conservative. One's winning or the other's winning.
Yeah.
We see that this is corroded down and the smaller parties are having more and more of an effect. And in this particular case, you have the Reform Party, which is a populist, nationalistic, very far right wing ideology, and it is gaining ground. But also gaining ground is the Green Party, which is much farther to the left, and the Green Party is gaining popularity because they have decided to talk about things that are other than environmental. So they now are branching off into things that are beyond environmental. We found to the disaster of the Green Party here in Canada, when they did that, their politics got totally wacky. They got really weird. Yeah. They got very, very strange, and they were kind of dismissed out of hand. Basically, they were ultra left wing and very fringe. Sometimes their politics were just completely odd. And so the environmental component stayed the same, but the Green Party just went off into the land of la la land, and that's why they're not very, very effective in Canada. But here in the UK, it seems that they have taken a much more practical approach.
Yeah, I was looking up Southampton, a town that I used to live in when I was a child, and I was looking there and at some of the results there. Labour still held about a third of that council, but Liberals now holding a third of that. You know, it's very much split between the four parties. You know, so there's not as much, so Liberals took seats from Labour, Reform took seats from Conservatives, and, Green took seats from Labour, as you said.
Yeah, we find that the so-called duopoly of Conservatives and Reform for the last 100 years is being broken down, and smaller parties are getting more of having more of an effect. That might be a very good thing. The United States should look at that. They have a two-party system where it is really the authority of the Democrats or the authority of the Republicans. They're really, as Marjorie Taylor Greene says, they are the same party in different clothes, basically. Yeah. The Democrats will oblige the rich people of one quarter, the industrialists, and the Republican Party will oblige the rich people of the tech bros in that area, and the people get left behind.
Yeah,
talk a lot about the people, but they don't really amount to much. And both parties are hideously one-sided, and they do this tribalist thing. But if you have more parties in your, then they have less of that. We here in Canada have the NDP, which is almost nothing now, but at least we did have that party, which could make the other two parties a little more honest,
Well, the thing is about in Britain, the Conservative Party's been fractionalizing since the 90s, since Major's leadership of the party. It's, there's been two distinct wings of that. One being one very much being to the right, the anti-European part of the party, and the other being, the part of the party that believes Europe is the way forward. But so the fact they held on for a further 20 years, or and further 25 years is a miracle, because a lot of people were seeing the end of the Conservatives back in the day. I didn't see that, because I saw that realistically in Britain, the party of power has always been traditionally the Conservative Party. Right, Labour is only the second second party. They're the party that you bring in when you need to clear away the fact that Conservatives did a bad job.
Well, anyway, for the rest of us who don't really understand much of UK politics or even European politics, at least the particularities of it, what did we see here? We saw the traditional parties losing power,
Yeah,
and losing influence. What do we see here is the more outlier parties gaining. And we find that in the UK, we find that the more populist party, like the Reform Party, are gaining more control, more influence. And so are the more left-leaning parties like the Green Party. They are also gaining some at the expense of the big traditional parties.
yeah,
So that's the takeaway I see,
yeah,
is that the populists are still growing, but so are the counter. So
yeah.
what we used to be the fringe parties, the populist parties, or the far left, or the Green parties. The Green parties were thought to be sort of left-wing flakes, and sort of the Reform Party was thought to be right-wing flakes. But now they've become more in line with general politics. So we will see. But I have a feeling, I don't know how that's going to reflect here in Canada. We find the Separatist Party in Alberta being very, very conservative, far right type of party. I'm not so sure they really want to be that way, but that's the way they're ending up. A very populist type of generation. We find that we've had that same thing going on in Quebec for a very long time. And the populist nature of the party doesn't always seem to bear out well politically. Just because you're a populist doesn't mean that you're going to be a good government. And we've seen what populism has done in the United States with the rise of Trumpism, and how MAGA has transformed the Republican Party from a mainstream party to a kind of wacky fringe party, but with a lot of power. So we will see that there are currents in the world, the democratic world, the Western world, currents that are really conflicting one another. You had this move towards the left, then you had the strong move towards the right, as we saw in European politics, and how shocking it was in the German Parliament, where right-wing parties did so well, the populist parties did very well. We find that Le Pen's party in France is always a threat to take over, and they were thought to be a fringe party. And Rick says in Canada, Carney has to go. Well, we always, I think Rick has, CTS, Carney, CDS, Carney derangement syndrome. Since Carney got in, I've noticed as soon as he got in, he became responsible for everything bad in the world. All of a sudden, within 2 weeks, Carney was the worst thing ever happened to Canada, and yet he's the guy that's I don't know. I think Carney has only been in a year, and already saying got to get rid of him. Who are you going to replace him with? PP? PP has kind of lost his way. PP is also a Zionist, and I don't like that part of it at all. I don't like that part of the Conservative Party at all. They're staunch support of Israel, no matter how many Palestinians they murder. And so I don't know. You don't have even Germany is reform. Well, yeah, they're pushing that way. Yeah, the races. We're in the same boat, Dave. Same boat. What same boat?
as,
of
as Europe.
as Europe. Yeah, I expect that there's going to be a lot more nationalism here too, but there will be the counter, like in the country of the United States, where there's been a huge shift towards fundamental nationalism. You still got a guy like Mamdani who won the biggest city in the United States, New York City.
Yeah.
Why was that? Why was that? Because there's a shift away in parts of the United States away from that fundamentalist nationalism.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
All right. All right. So moving on. Niagara Parks workers are threatening to strike ahead of the summer.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of the threat thing, but that's what they've got. What's happened is that the contract was concluded back in November for the Niagara Parks workers, and they have had no new deal. And this is down to the government because, well, the Niagara Parks is self-funding. They make their own money. They do not rely on taxpayers. However, the government is who controls the purse strings. What is it? Anyway, got to get the article up here. So the government's really the ones that control the purse string.
Yeah, but it's Ontario Public Service Employees Union, OPSEU, is actually the union involved in this.
Yes. And what they're saying is they haven't had a good contract, one that is fair. And because the parks makes its own money, they feel the government is interfering with the negotiations. And it says it is accused Premier Doug Ford and his Treasury Board. This is what I mean, the Treasury Board. The Treasury Board is a board made up of the cabinet members of the Ontario government, and they're the ones that allow or permit money being used, in this particular case, for the Parks Commission. Now, the Parks Commission being a fully self-funded organization, the union saying they're sticking their nose in where it doesn't belong, and that they could make a deal with the Parks Commission on their own. They don't need government interference here. And yet it seems that the Treasury Board are the ones that are holding up a deal. And all they're asking for here is, as the parks, a self-funded enterprise that does not rely on taxpayer dollars to pay the wages of Niagara Parks employees to bargain in good faith. But the Treasury Board, and it says here, 120 workers carried several signs. Some of that says world-class park, second-class wages. Another one said hands-off contract. And another one says Treasury Board keep out. And of course, the one I like the most, we cannot afford for
it. Well, yeah. And that seems, I don't think necessarily Doug Ford is necessarily the one who's involved in this, which is why, despite the headline, I took Ford's name out of this whole question about the workers threatening to strike. Ford's an easy target here. I don't think he's a real target. But again, I want to also introduce what Rick has just said. Time to bring back Bob Gale.
I like to see Bob Gale back, and I think he got a raw deal there because Bob Gale actually did save us $300 million, so he claims, and I believe him. When the Maid of the Mist thing was revealed to be an inside job all the time, there's lots of people made a lot of money off of that when it wasn't put out the contract.
Yeah.
And everybody took their eyes off the ball, but the people involved in the park were quite happy splitting up no one knows where the money was going. And when he observed that this was not put out to tender like it should be, he revealed a real mess. So he dug down and he saved that for us. However, I don't think Bob Gale is a very good politician because he's too brusque and terse. We need that kind of thing from time to time. And then with the fact that he bought the book Mein Kampf that was signed by Hitler, which I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a historical document. I think we can learn from things like that. But that, of course, his enemies just ran with that and ruined him. I think we need a guy like Bob Gale, basically somebody that is terse.
Remember before his rise to the head up the region, he was the head of the Niagara Parks Commission, wasn't he?
He was involved there. Yeah, I don't know if he was head, but he was certainly on them on the Niagara Parks. And that's what brought him. That's when he started peeking into how things were done. Anyways, So we won't see Bob Gale again, though.
No, we won't.
For right about now, his career is being ruined. There's been a lot of judgment put on him, unnecessarily judgment. I would say that I celebrate his fact that he collected historical documents the way he did. I like that idea. But
in any case, he's kind of where he is probably right now. He's probably going to sit down for at least 5 years before he decides what his next step is, if there was any future involvement in politics at all.
I don't know. But in any case, the workers are on strike. They feel the Treasury Board of Ontario is the thing that's getting in their way, that if they were to deal and have their collective bargaining go from the Niagara Parks to them directly, they don't need the interference of the government in this particular case because the Niagara Parks makes its own money. It does not use taxpayer money. So why is the government sticking their nose in their business? That's what they're saying.
Yeah. But they're basically saying that they can come up with their own deal.
Yeah, they don't need the government. They don't need them sticking their nose in.
But there are a couple of crucial things happening here, of course. We're about 6 weeks away from the World Cup. And, of course, Toronto is a host city for the World Cup, which, of course, means that Niagara is going to get additional tourism.
Yeah, there'll be he's going golfing. Yeah, so basically what you got is I don't know. It is a good time to threaten a strike. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound good. You know what? If you don't give us what we want, we're going to ruin tourism here. I don't really think they want that message out there, but it is a good time to go on strike or to remind everybody that their deal has not been, the collective bargaining has not happened. It ended in November, and there's been a stall in it. The union blames the government, the Treasury Board, to get their nose out of their business. And the Treasury Board comes back with a comment that's pretty just lame. Oh, we believe in this and we think that and all that other stuff. So they just gave a pretty bland, say nothing kind of comment back when asked. So are you going to get a fair outcome? I don't know. And this is Wayne Gates. This is a good place for him to be. He was a union leader all these years. He can understand the language of these guys, of the workers, not guys, but of the workers of Niagara. He knows what that's all about. He's seen all that stall and deflect and delay tactics of the employer, because the longer they stall and delay, the less they have to pay out. Yeah. That's why so many contracts get retroactive to get away from that kind of tactic. So I don't understand why the Treasury Board getting involved in this. They've probably always been involved in this, no matter what party's in power and at Queen's Park. But anyway, I would like to see this resolved really quickly because the Niagara Parks does make a heck of a lot of money, and they can share the gain.
Yeah. All right. So just as we wrap up today, Niagara Regional Police won a cross-border tug-of-war at the Rainbow Bridge this weekend.
Yes, we won this time. Both our ladies and our gentlemen won the tug of war. Our ladies won and our men won. Last year, I think our ladies won, but our men lost. So this is very good camaraderie. This is a kind of a really cool thing, actually. You have two cities side by side, Niagara Falls, New York on the east side of the river, Niagara Falls, Ontario on the west side of the river. In any other situation, that would be one big city possibly.
Yeah.
But anyway, both aspects of them, the law enforcement get together and have a big tug of war, and it is a sign of camaraderie and a kind of connection between the both sides. And we should be reminded of that very much, especially now when the predatory type of trade negotiations and the weirdos in the White House have really made a mess of international relations, particularly between best friends like the United States and Canada. So this is always a reminder that the people don't follow the government.
Yeah,
the people are different from the government.
Yeah,
and our relationship with the American people has not been is not being sullied by the actions of the American government, who think of us as the 51st state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
anyway, so this is just good.
Yeah, no, and actually it's glad to see, the cops across the border actually, you think about it, they rely upon each other anyway, don't they? There's those cross-border communications in that area, so it's natural that they're going to have a friendly competition in the tug of war on an annual basis, right?
Yeah, that's just a good thing. Anyway,
yeah.
So we're wrapping up here. We're getting close to the end, and I got to do my bingo thing. And we didn't talk about the Iran war, but the Iranians are complaining, so they got negotiations going forward, but the Iranians keep complaining that the U.S. has no control over Israel, that Israel is calling the shots, and why should they be negotiating with the United States when the United States cannot control Israel, and why is it that Israel is the one to determine whether the deal goes through or not?
That's a fair question.
That's their biggest complaint, that Israel is actually controlling the U.S. and it should be the other way around. So they said, why should we make any deal with you? Because we've made a deal to stop the war or put a ceasefire in the war in Lebanon, and yet Israel just keeps bombing as their heart's desire, and you won't do anything about it. You won't. Anytime Israel does anything, you can't stop them. You just what's the point of negotiating with you when Israel is going to do what they want anyway? So we have two powers fighting us. We have the largest Middle East army, which is the Israeli army, the most powerful army in the regional army, and we have the most powerful army in the world, the United States, beating the crap out of us, and yet the largest, but the Israelis do what they want. And when you're doing a deal, you're not doing a deal for the discontinuance of the war. You're only making a deal for the part of the war that you're doing, and you have no control over Israel. So that's what they're complaining about.
Yeah.
They have two enemies, Israel and the United States, and Israel does what it wants, and the Americans have no control over them.
Yeah.
That's a little bit overstated, but that's generally what they do. Is Israel does what they want to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, and Israel keeps bombing the crap out of Gaza. They killed another 100 people in South Lebanon. Again, what they want to do is push all the people out of southern Lebanon up to the Litani River, because they want the border to be the Litani River. This has been their objective for many years from the Greater Israel movement in Israel. They've wanted to get up to the Litani River for many years, and this time they're taking another stab at it because they know Trump is weak and he can't control the Israelis, so they're going to do what they want to do. It's a perfect situation for them. They have a weak American leader, and they have as many weapons as they can, and they have Iran on its back foot. So it's the best chance of ever for them to do this, and Trump can't stop them because he hasn't got the ponies to do it. Anyway, just think of peace and think of Gaza. That was a genocidal nightmare, and even the people who supported Israel to the nines cannot handle that. And that response to October 7th, when you have killed 72,000 people for a terrorist attack that killed 1,200. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace.
And think about